There's a moment every man faces. The moment he realizes his words don't land the way he hoped. He speaks, but nothing stays. He compliments her, but nothing touches her heart. And he starts wondering, is it me? Or am I saying the wrong things? Today, you'll discover the truth that most men never learn. Compliments don't fail because you're not good enough. They fail because nobody ever taught you how to speak in a way that feels real, warm, and unforgettable. And once you understand this, everything changes. Most compliments feel empty because they only focus on what's visible. A woman hears, "You look nice." "Pretty dress," thousands of times in her life. They sound good for a moment, but they disappear like smoke. They touch the surface, not the heart. Because beauty is not rare. Effort, character, energy, those things are rare. That's why the first compliment we're breaking down today is one of the most powerful you will ever use. I notice the effort you put into things. It's simple, but it hits deep. Why? Because it acknowledges something most people never see. Effort is private. Effort is personal. Effort is the part of someone's life that happens when nobody is watching. The late nights, the planning, the struggles, the discipline, the stress, the moments where she pushes forward even when she feels tired or unsure. When you notice someone's effort, you're telling them, I see the part of you that you thought nobody would ever notice. Machiavelli believed something surprisingly human. People crave recognition for their work more than praise for their success. Success is public. Effort is hidden, and hidden things carry emotion. Modern psychology agrees. Research shows that when someone's effort is recognized, it activates deeper emotional connection because effort is tied to identity. A person's effort represents who they are internally, not just how they look. When you tell a woman, I noticed the effort you put into things, you're giving her something rare. Emotional visibility. You're saying she isn't invisible. She isn't overlooked. She isn't just someone who exists in the background. She is someone whose work, actions, and discipline matter. And here's the truth. Most women feel unseen. People admire their results but ignore the journey they fought through to get there. They see the polished final version, not the battles behind it. But you see both. You see what others miss. That instantly puts you in a different category, not because you're trying harder, but because you're looking deeper. Imagine this, she finally hears a compliment that speaks to who she is, not what she looks like. The stress she hid, the commitment she carried, the sacrifices she made, suddenly all of it feels recognized, and that kind of recognition creates a feeling that lasts. Compliments like this build trust because they show emotional intelligence, they show maturity, they show that you pay attention to character, not just appearance. Most men stay on the surface because they're scared of saying something deeper. But depth is what touches the human heart. In a world where most people only want quick attention, the person who pays attention to effort becomes unforgettable. Effort is not beautiful in the traditional sense, it's beautiful because it's honest. And when you recognize honesty, you build a connection that feels safe, warm, and real. So remember this, people don't fall for words, they fall for being understood. They fall for feeling seen in a world that barely looks. And that journey begins right here with the compliments that actually mean something. There comes a moment in life when everything changes, not with a fight, not with a warning, but with a silent shift you only understand when it has already happened. A man stays the same for a long time. His heart remains loyal, his intentions genuine, his efforts sincere. He keeps believing that if he loves more, gives more, tries harder, things will return to the way they once were. But on the other side, the story has already begun rewriting itself long before he notices the first sign. A woman does not distance herself overnight. She detaches slowly, phase by phase. First, her replies slow down, then her tone becomes lighter, her words shorter, her emotions quieter. And the most dangerous moment is when she stops making you feel that you matter. This is the moment men ignore the most. They comfort themselves saying, maybe she's tired, maybe she's stressed, maybe she'll be fine in a few days. But the truth is far sharper. The real shift hides inside that maybe. The problem is not that she changed. The problem is that her change started long ago and you didn't see it. When a woman truly gives up, her body stays, but her heart leaves first. And here lies the biggest misunderstanding. Men think trying harder will fix everything, but the more you chase, the less she values your presence. Not because she is heartless, but because human nature loses interest in what becomes too available. Relationships rarely end with explosions, they dissolve quietly. Walls don't collapse suddenly, foundations weaken silently. Conversations become shorter, silence grows heavier, connection becomes thinner, and the story starts writing new characters before you even realize a new chapter has begun. But here is the truth every man needs to hear. A woman doesn't distance because it is her nature. She distances as a response to being unheard, a response to being taken for granted, a response to expectations she could no longer carry, a response to time pulling both of you in different directions. When a woman leaves, she rarely cries out loud. She becomes silent. And when a man is left, he learns what he ignored before. This moment becomes the beginning of a new chapter, the chapter where a man finally faces himself, studies his wounds, understands his mistakes, and rebuilds what he once neglected. And someday, there comes a point after the silence where a man finally realizes that the greatest battles are never fought with another person. They are fought within himself. When she walked away, you thought you lost her. But what you really lost was the version of yourself that depended on her validation. This is the moment men rarely talk about, the moment when the world continues moving, but your mind gets trapped between what was and what could have been. You replay conversations, revisit memories, rewrite moments in your head, thinking you could have done something differently. But the truth is simple. A woman leaves long after she has already tried everything, and a man understands this only when he has nothing left to fix except himself. Pain becomes the teacher you never asked for, but desperately needed. It shows you that you made her your priority while making yourself an option. It shows you that you loved deeply, but forgot to love wisely. It shows you that you gave everything, except the one thing she wanted the most, your presence, your consistency, your awareness. But here is where the transformation begins, not in regret, but in awakening. Because the version of you that survives heartbreak is always stronger than the one who entered it. You start noticing patterns you ignored. You start valuing boundaries you never set. You learn the difference between attachment and respect, between desire and discipline, between loving someone and losing yourself. And slowly, without realizing it, you rise, not to win her back, but to win yourself back. This is where a man evolves, not when he replaces her, not when he distracts himself, but when he rebuilds himself piece by piece, when he stops chasing and starts understanding, when he stops pleading and starts growing, when he stops asking, "Why did she leave?" and starts asking, "Why did I forget who I was?" True strength is not proving you didn't break, it is rebuilding even after you did. And here is the twist life gives every man. The moment you stop needing someone to complete you, you become the version of yourself no one can walk away from. This is where the story shifts. This is where the wounds turn into wisdom. This is where The man who once waited finally becomes the man who leads. And someday, when you look back, you won't remember the pain. You'll remember the moment you realized that losing her wasn't the end, it was the beginning of you. There comes a phase after the heartbreak where a man stops searching for answers outside and begins uncovering the truth within. At first, it feels strange. Life becomes quieter, nights become longer, and the world feels heavier. But gradually, something begins to shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, but silently, like the first light of dawn slipping through a dark room. This phase is where most men think they are breaking, but in reality, they are being rebuilt. You begin to understand that love was never supposed to be a battlefield where you kept proving your worth. It was supposed to be a space where two people grew, not where one person drained himself trying to keep everything alive. And once this truth sinks in, a new clarity starts forming. You stop checking her online status. You stop waiting for a message that will never come. You stop imagining conversations that ended long ago. Instead, you start imagining the man you can become. You realize that heartbreak didn't destroy you. It revealed you. It showed your weaknesses, but it also unlocked your potential. You start choosing silence over arguments, understanding over reaction, confidence over desperation, and this is where your energy shifts. You begin guarding your heart, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You stop giving unlimited access to people who only deserved limited entry. You stop pouring into connections that refuse to pour back. You no longer chase validation because you finally understand your own value. And when a man reaches this level, everything around him changes. His walk becomes firmer, his eyes sharper, his standards higher. He becomes a man who doesn't need attention to feel worthy and doesn't need a relationship to feel complete. He becomes a man who is dangerous, not because he is cold, but because he is clear about what he wants, clear about what he will not tolerate, clear about who deserves space in his life. And here lies the irony life always brings. The moment you stop chasing others, others begin noticing you. The moment you stop begging for love, you start attracting real love. The moment you stop shrinking yourself, the world starts making space for your strength. This is the chapter where the man who once broke becomes unbreakable. Not because he avoided pain, but because he learned how to rise above it. And one day, you will look back and realize, she didn't just leave your life. She led you to the version of yourself you were always meant to become. There comes a moment in every man's evolution where he stops living in the memory of what happened and starts living in the responsibility of who he must become. This is the phase where your mind stops replaying old conversations and starts rewriting new standards. A phase where you no longer search for closure from someone else because you have finally found closure within yourself. You begin to realize that every disappointment was not a punishment, it was direction. Every ending was not a loss, it was correction. Every person who walked away was not rejection. They were simply redirection toward a better version of you that you could never meet if you stayed where you were. And slowly, the man who once questioned everything begins to understand the truth. Life wasn't taking things from you, it was freeing you from what was never meant to stay. You start seeing patterns clearly. You recognize the moments you allowed disrespect because you didn't want to lose someone. You see the times you ignored your intuition just to keep a connection alive. You remember how many pieces of yourself you gave away just to feel loved for a moment. And this realization doesn't break you, it awakens you. It teaches you that your heart is priceless, your energy is rare, your presence is powerful. You stop giving discounts on a soul that deserves full value. You stop becoming available to people who treated you like an option. You stop letting emotion decide what your standards should tolerate. And when this shift happens, everything changes. You start saying no without fear, yes without desperation, and enough without explanation. Your silence becomes stronger than your words. Your decisions become louder than your feelings. Your boundaries become clearer than your doubts. And this is the moment life begins respecting you in ways people never did. Because once a man rises from the version of himself that heartbreak created, he becomes someone who cannot be manipulated, cannot be replaced, and cannot be broken again the same way. He becomes a man whose worth is defined not by who loves him, but by who he has chosen to become. And the universe responds to such a man differently. Opportunities start opening, people start noticing, energy starts aligning. Not because the world changed, because you did. You stopped living like a man who needed saving and started living like a man who leads himself. And here lies the truth that completes this chapter. The moment you finally choose yourself, everything that isn't meant for you quietly chooses to leave. And everything that is meant for you begins to find its way toward you without you chasing it. That is the power of a man reborn from his own reflection. Unshaken, unmatched, unstoppable. There comes a stage in every man's journey where silence becomes his greatest weapon, and clarity becomes his sharpest edge. This is the moment when the noise of the past finally fades, and the voice within him becomes louder than the opinions around him. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who never really listened. You no longer chase after hearts that were never meant to stay. You no longer break yourself just to keep temporary people comfortable. Instead, you begin to build a life where your peace is non-negotiable, your standards unshakable, and your direction unstoppable. You start to understand that the man you are becoming requires letting go of the man you used to be, the one who tolerated too much, the one who apologized for things that weren't his fault, the one who kept giving chances to people who proved they didn't deserve them. And this realization doesn't make you cold, it makes you disciplined. You begin choosing solitude over drama, growth over comfort, purpose over distraction. You stop texting first, you stop explaining twice, you stop begging for loyalty you never received. And in that shift, you become a man whose presence is no longer available on discount. You become a man whose time has value, whose attention has weight, and whose energy has worth. The world starts noticing the change even before you do. People who once ignored you suddenly start watching you. People who once doubted you now wonder how you evolved so fast. But they don't understand that your transformation didn't happen in public. It happened in the quiet moments where you rebuilt yourself piece by piece. You started waking up with intention. You started speaking with confidence. You started moving like a man who has something to protect. His mind, his heart, his future. And the universe responds differently to such a man. Opportunities open. Right people appear. Wrong people fade. Doors you once begged for now open without you knocking. Because when a man becomes aligned with who he truly is, the world has no choice but to align with him. This is the moment where the boy dies and the man is born, the man who walks with purpose, the man who leads with strength, the man who no longer fears losing anyone because he finally understands that the only true loss is losing himself. And you, my friend, have finally stopped losing yourself. You are stepping into a chapter where your past cannot reach you, your fears cannot limit you, and your old wounds cannot control you. You are no longer surviving, you are becoming. becoming the man you were meant to be, focused, grounded, unbreakable.